Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode, Unmasking Human Trafficking, Prevention, Rescue, and Recovery. So today on RISEUP, Voices from the Frontlines, we uncover the hidden truths behind human trafficking, what it really looks like, how it happens, and why aftercare is just as critical as rescue. If you think that human trafficking is just something that happens in movies or in far-off places, I really want you to think again. It's happening in your communities, in your neighborhood, and likely right under your nose. Today, we're going to talk about what it really means to be trafficked, some of the tactics that traffickers use, and most importantly, how we all can help prevent it and provide support for survivors. So let's just dive in. Many of you already know this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as I was born the throwaway daughter of a human trafficking victim. I was born to a young woman who was more concerned with where her next fix was coming from than what her dealer/pimp was doing with her newborn daughter. I would become a child of the system, thank goodness, adopted very quickly into a loving family. But in many ways, the damage has already been done. They're not kidding when they talk about trauma living in our bodies, and those early days of life are absolutely crucial to our development. I'll leave some of those stories for another day. Human trafficking isn't what Hollywood shows you. When most people hear human trafficking, they picture a dramatic kidnapping scene with a shadowy figure in a van snatching a girl off the street, and this does happen sometimes. But the truth is, much more often, it's far less cinematic and far more insidious. Many victims are groomed and manipulated over time, often by people they know and trust, family members, partners, or employers. Others are coerced through deception, false job offers, or threats against their loved ones. Even your friends can be a problem. You've probably seen trafficking victims without even realizing it. They could be working in a massage parlor, a nightclub, street vending cart, agricultural fields, even domestic workers in suburban homes. The signs may be subtle, but they're there. Do people seem isolated, afraid to speak, show signs of physical abuse, or are they controlled by someone else? How traffickers maintain control. Once a victim is in their grip, breaking free is really difficult. Some studies suggest as many as 85% of survivors without stable aftercare support are at risk of being re-exploited. That's because traffickers use a mix of psychological and physical tactics to keep their victims compliant. We've already talked about forced drug addiction. Victims are often given drugs to make them dependent, which makes them easier to control. Sexual and physical abuse. Many endure repeated rape and brutal assaults that break their sense of self-worth. They experience food and sleep deprivation, which keeps them physically weak, making them less likely to resist. They experience debt bondage. They're told they owe their trafficker money for housing, food, or transportation, which traps them in an endless cycle of servitude. Many experience threats against their loved ones. They stay because they believe leaving endangers their family. These tactics create a deep psychological prison, which doesn't disappear the moment a survivor is physically free. Many survivors don't even realize they're experiencing trafficking. That's why aftercare is essential. The crisis of aftercare. So what happens after rescue? Rescuing someone from trafficking is only the first battle. The real fight is helping them build a life afterwards. Many survivors have nowhere to go. Some can't return home because their families were involved in their exploitation. Others have criminal records from offenses that they were forced to commit. Without housing, therapy, job training, they're left vulnerable to being trafficked again. Some studies suggest as many as 64% of trafficking victims were originally trafficked due to financial desperation. That means without economic opportunities, the cycle repeats itself. And yet, only a tiny percentage of survivors worldwide have access to comprehensive aftercare services. We believe the solution for that is to strike at the problem from every angle: prevention, protection, resilience, rescue, and recovery. And that is what we're dedicating our lives into developing and integrating into every community. The root causes. Who's at risk? So you might be wondering how people end up in these situations. Traffickers prey on vulnerability. Some of the risk factors include poverty and financial hardship. If someone is struggling to survive, they're more likely to take risks for job opportunities that turn out to be trafficking scams. Unstable family structures and abuse. Kids who run away from abusive homes are often targeted within 48 hours of being on the streets. Immigration status. I know this is a hot button topic right now. Undocumented individuals are often too afraid to seek help, which makes them easy targets for labor and sex trafficking. The foster care system and homelessness. Many trafficking victims come from broken homes and a broken system that failed them long before the traffickers ever found them. So what can we do? Yes, this problem is massive, but there is hope. We can all take steps to fight trafficking and to support survivors. Learn the signs. Pay attention to people who seem controlled, unable to speak freely for themselves, or are fearful. There is a national human trafficking hotline, 888-373-7888. It is always available if you suspect something. If you want to be even more effective, get familiar with what resources local law enforcement has to offer and what organizations serve this population in your area, so you know exactly who to call when you or someone else needs help. You may even have dedicated task forces running in your area who are completely focused on this fight. Support aftercare programs. Organizations like Battle to Be and RISEUP Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute work tirelessly to create much needed critical housing, mental wellness, and life mastery for survivors. Donations and volunteer work go a long way. There are many multi-billion-dollar organizations out there funneling funds from those who need them most into administration and contractor pockets. The real support is boots on the ground, out there in the real world, where trafficking happens, doing real work that makes change happen. Advocate for policy changes. Push for better victim protection laws, expungement for survivor criminal records, and stronger penalties for traffickers. Prostitution is not a victimless crime, and it is not empowering to women, no matter what the feminist movement might decry. And anyone under the age of 18 is not able to choose sexual exploitation. They are all victims. Employ survivors. If you own a business, consider hiring trafficking survivors who are rebuilding their lives. This can be a huge step in ensuring their success. Feeling connected and supported builds a network of trust that can greatly reduce their risk of being drawn back into a trafficking situation again. And spread awareness. Talk about trafficking in your community. The more people understand what it looks like, the harder it is for traffickers to operate in silence. Join us for one of our master classes, or have us come to your organization and speak, or train your employees. Just a few closing thoughts. Human trafficking is a crisis that thrives in the shadows. But when we shine a light on it, we strip traffickers of their power. By raising awareness, investing in aftercare, and advocating for change, we can turn the tide. Thank you for joining us today on Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines. If you found this episode helpful, share it. someone in your network definitely needs to hear it. And you can make a one-time or recurring donation at battletebe.org, BATTLE, the number 2, BE.org, to support one of our many community crisis programs. Until next time, stay aware, stay engaged, and be a voice for those who need it most.